Hello, hello, everybody. Awakening Circle family. Let's see here. See if I can make it all work as usual. Make these comments go, and then we're going to begin. Give everybody a few moments to jump on if you're jumping on. If you are with us today, go ahead and. Whoop, that's not what I wanted. Go ahead and say hello in the chat. And if you are watching the recording of this, do the same. And any questions, any thoughts, anything that comes up, let's go ahead and share. This is all about building our connection and our community. And I am so excited to be here with you guys. Today we are going to be talking about the body. And the body is an oracle, which is one of my favorite things. I probably talk about it the most in terms of when I'm working with people and clients, whether in group or one-on-one sessions. This is a big one. Go, and then I'm going to see if I can get this to work for us. Well, we'll hope for the best, as always. All right, so the body as an oracle. The thing about this is so often we are taught that our bodies are bad, and we are taught that they're wrong, and we often dissociate from them. So I was super dissociated from my body years ago, and my doctor tried all sorts of things to get me to reconnect back in. And it's fair, my body, from a subconscious point of view, wasn't a safe place to live. It wasn't safe for lots of different reasons in terms of physical pain as well as emotional pain. And if you think about it, when we think of an emotion, we often don't think of the emotion itself, but the feeling. So we get the physical experience of that emotion, the collapsing of the thought and the emotion together in our bodies. And if that feels overwhelming, or if it feels uncomfortable or painful, then we're going to move away from pain. It's a survival instinct. And so we're taught to do this, as well as we have an instinct to move away from pain. And in the physical body is this most beautiful vessel, but really it's like a tool. So not only is it the home for our spark, our light, to experience this world, but it is also the tool for us to experience the world around us, as well as for us to create, especially when we're conscious, when we're aware, to purposely create something in this world, and then we get the feedback from the world with that. And so the body itself is beautiful. The other thing the body is really phenomenal for is as a information center. So you can think of it as a translator. So things are going on inside subconsciously, and we don't speak that language, and we have this disconnect. And so our body will interpret the issues that are going on in our subtle body, in our energetic world, and bring them into a physical experience. And because we don't really pay attention to a lot of our subtle experiences, so the essences of things, or the spirituality of our bodies, of ourself, then we need to get some feedback. We need information, and the body tries to do that for us. And so that is a lot of what the body is it becomes the oracle. It becomes the truth sayer. It tells us what's been going on in our life that maybe we haven't acknowledged. So a lot of the times we'll belittle our experiences in this world, and we'll say, well, yeah, but these people have gone through that. Like, oh, I'm going through this, but I'm not going through cancer. And so we belittle the experiences that we have, or we'll say, oh, I've never had really anything traumatic happen. Well, if you've ever felt grief or heartache or betrayal, then you've had at least a trauma with a small t versus a trauma with a big T. And all of us have traumas in our life. So that's why I always refer to the traumas and dramas that we're storing in our bodies. And then our body gives us the feedback that says, hey, I'm full. I've got too much. This is causing chaos. You need to take the garbage out. And if you think of it that way, it's like this trash compactor that we just keep compacting, compacting, compacting. And if we never take the stuff out, then we're going to have chaos. And at some point, we can't put anything else in. And then we're like, I'm done. I'm done. I have no capacity left. Even think of the words that we use when we hit this place of just like tapped out. And so the body as an oracle really loves, well, it doesn't love, but it tries its absolute best to say we have an issue and we have a problem. One of the greatest frustrations that we can have in the world, and right now we're in a really cool time because we have moved more in our awareness to being open to psychosomatics. Psychosomatics used to be phooey. If something's wrong with the knee, it's a knee problem. And then once we start to understand psychosomatics and how it works, and it's been around for thousands of years, not one or two, thousands of years, medicine has been based off of this. If you look into the ancients of Chinese medicine, of acupuncture, psychosomatics is part of this. And so how organs process certain emotions, how they react to certain emotions, has been around for a long time. It's just that Western medicine has finally caught up with it. And there's been enough studies to show where psychosomatics works. Or you might also hear of it being called psychoneuroimmunology. And so we go into the psyche, the nervous system, and immunology, how it's affecting the immune system or the functions of the body. That'd be the basic places of it. And so when we look at it from here, we want to understand that it's our body we want to listen to, not our mind. So if you haven't heard me say it yet, our ego is created by our identification with form. That's what the ego is. The ego is the identification with form. So we're born, we get a body, and the beginning of it starts with our parents saying, whose toes are these? Whose little ears are these? Whose little nose is that? It's Don's nose. It's Don's nose. And we identify as a body. Baby can't even figure out hands. Like there's like, what is this thing? Because it's moving from being a soul, an essence, into the confinement of physical form. And as we identify with our physical form, we get the creation of ego. As we continue to grow and evolve, we start to identify not only as the physical body, but then we add in emotions, mind, intellect, all these other things, experiences, and all the things that we identify with, we become. They become part of it. We become them in our ego, in our identities. And that's why when something suddenly changes, it can be life-shattering, because it is the life of the ego has just been disintegrated and has to be reformed. And so like for myself, I went through massive identity crises, especially after the brain injury. And all of a sudden I couldn't be Supermom and Wonder Wife and the Lighting Goddess and all it could be a control freak because I had no fucking control. And so everything went out the window. And all of a sudden I was like, well then who am I? All these things that I created that kept me safe and of value in this world are gone. And now what do I do? And so I went through this massive identity crisis, and it's the crisis of the ego. And so the crisis or the ego tries to cling to the next thing, which is why often it will cling to the pain of the situation because it still keeps us in identification with that form. So instead of being a victim, now I'm a survivor. Instead of, like if I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety in my body, suddenly I have anxiety and I'm an anxious person. So I have identified with it now. Same goes for any emotional state. I'm an angry person. I'm an aggressive person. All of a sudden we've taken an emotion, this thing that's just an experience outside of ourselves, and we take it and make it ours. And the problem is if we compress and hold something and we don't let it out, then what happens is it goes from being an emotion and experience, and it starts to become a mood, and then it becomes part of your personality, and suddenly it creates your personal reality. And that's why when we look at all of the ancient sages, they say thought is the base of form. Everything that is happening now was once a thought. That's why people try affirmations and and manifestations. This is where that starts from, is because if it is for the negative, then we try it for the positive. But in here, the body often tries to tell us, like, so one of the problems that comes up is we just go for the next good thing, but we don't consider having to release the past. So in a lot of my coaching programs, this is something that we do, is I'm like, but you can't write over the old story without erasing parts of it. The story that you have, your experiences are always going to be there. They become part of your wisdom. But what we need to do in terms of the traumas and dramas, we need to remove the old stuff. So I need to remove unworthiness before I call in abundance. Otherwise, if I have a lack mentality and I'm asking for abundance, what's going to happen is I'm going to win $1,000 on a scratch and win and all of a sudden my hot water tank's going to go and it's going to cost me $999. Ever had it? You all of a sudden have something great happen, but boom, something bad happens. You're like, oh, great. It just means that you didn't undo the stuff that was underneath. So the interior experience that your body has been trying to give you feedback about is interfering with what is going on that you want to create consciously. So we need to release the subconscious stuff, and the body will tell us what's going on. The other thing about the oracle is that it also does a great job of telling us which way to move or go in our life, where we usually will outsource that energy. So if you think about it, it's not the overthinking. Like, I don't know about you, but looping over and over and over and over and over again on a problem or a situation has yet to give me solid answers. It's not our checklist. Like, even the positives and the negatives, we can still feel like, even if it's weighted one direction and it's like, I still just don't know. But we don't stop to ask what that is. Like, what is it that's stopping you? And usually it's your body. Your body will give you the feedback for your intuition, for your soul, your higher self. And it's definitely not your inner critic. Your inner critic is not your guiding light. It is not the one that you need to be listening to. It actually has a ton of false information and is trying to protect you, so it sits in a state of fear. And that is the worst place that we can go to. As a matter of fact, we don't ask ourselves enough when we have a negative thought, whose voice is that? And when I say whose voice is that, so if I have a thought, like, oh, you're not smart enough to do that. If I stop and go, whose voice is that? It's not that I'm necessarily looking for the exact person that said that to me in the beginning. What I'm actually trying to accomplish is to create two separate things. Me, the awareness, and the voice. They're separate. I'm the one that's aware of the voice. So I'm shifting into awareness, and the more space I can make between myself and that voice, the less value that it has. And so if instead we stop outsourcing all of our decisions, all of our what we need to do next, what's right for us, to other people or to other things, our environment, to our mind, which is why I said about the ego earlier, is because the mind is the place where the ego lives. The heart is the place where our soul lives. And that's why we can know something intellectually, but we need, when people say, oh yeah, we got to bring it down, like you got to feel that. And you're like, what the frick does that mean? I mean, I paid a lot of coaches to help me figure out what that meant because I was so dissociated. And once we get into the physical body, you're like, oh, got it. My mind actually doesn't have the answers. My mind's another tool. It's like the engine of the car, but it's still not the one driving it. And so we often look to the mind, and the mind has been given a task it is not equipped to do. It is not equipped to drive this vehicle. It's not equipped to run this life. Ill-equipped. And yet most of us go there because we've been taught to. We've been taught to be intellectual. We've taught that it's safe to be there. But what it's really doing is keeping us in an unconscious state where we're not safe, where we're not okay. I'm just going to see if I can get... No. Seeing if I could fix the comments on the video, but... There we go. Well. It's like never ending, you guys, with all the... now I finally can see everybody. I'm so glad I took the pause. Um, yes. Okay, beautiful. Denise, ego is not always your friend. It's not. And the cool thing is, you guys, is the ego is also not our enemy. The ego is just a child. And so if you think of your ego as like this little child that you have, and it has a purpose. The ego, the identification with form, is our humanness. It's not bad. It's just that it's not meant to run the show. It is the energy in which we create in this world of duality in. But it's our soul, our essence, awareness, or consciousness that is meant to actually be doing the work or charting the courses. So ego is not bad either. It just shouldn't be taking and making all of our decisions. As a matter of fact, if we think about it, usually when we make a decision based on ego, it tends to backfire on us because ego is where we find pride, shame, guilt. It's in our ego that the shadows exist. In our spirit, in our soul, in our essence is pure light. Pure light. All the information is there. And if you think about the light within you, the spark in your heart, as being pure light, it's pure information. So light, the highest vibration of love and light, is pure information, pure knowledge, pure wisdom. And shadows or darkness is just a lack of information. Think about this from being a child and we have, or even an adult, and you have like a dark closet or a dark cubby and you kind of move away from it because you're like, what's in there? Or under the bed. But the moment that it's daylight or you turn a light on, boom, nothing there. All the monsters are gone. And so our light actually lives within ourselves. And so we want to bring more awareness to our light, and then the rest of it, it's not that it needs to be dealt with or tossed out or anything. It literally just dissipates like smoke. And so it's like opening up a window and all that light starts to shine and we start going, oh, all of that was just illusions. I just couldn't see, I couldn't get all the information, and so I was uncomfortable. And the more we come into our light, although in the beginning our ego's not going to like it, the more we come into the light, the quieter the ego becomes, the quieter that inner critic becomes, and the louder or clearer the intuitive sense becomes. And the intuitive sense will often use the body as the oracle, as the way to communicate things to us. So if you think of our clairs, so most people understand clairvoyance, so people that can see beyond the physical realm. There's clairaudience, people that can hear, so they'll hear whispers, voices, maybe bells, they'll hear all sorts of things that will be messages that they get. For some people, myself, I'm claircognizant, so I get downloads or knowings, and a lot of information will come in that way. I'm also clairsentient, which means that I get subtle feelings and sensations within my body. So if I'm doing, say, a body code session with somebody, I purposely open up my whole energy field to be able to get the feedback of what's happening in another person's body and sense it in my own. And so that's one, or and I can also do it with emotions, which is when you see people that are clairsentient or empathic. And so the downfall is sometimes they will take those emotions on as their own and it becomes deviant, dense and heavy, which we don't want. And so these are all of our clairs, and like there's one for smell, so we've got all these different senses that are beyond the physical sense. And so our body will give us feedback until, and sometimes even when we have them, like my body gives me greater feedback than, I can still be busy and in this world. I don't have to like pull back into my more subtle senses to get an answer. Often my body will give me an answer super fast. So while I'm still hyper vigilant what's going on out here, my body gives me the contraction or the expansion. And that's what I mean about your body being your oracle. So the body can give you so much great information. You're literally just thinking about me and then, I love that. I love what a beautiful world it all is, you guys. Okay, so when we're taking a look at this, so there's a cost. And so when we're outsourcing, it's not that we're not deciding, we're actually delaying. And we're teaching our nervous system that it can't be trusted. So if you think about this as a relationship outside of yourself, if you had a friend that never ever listened to you, you had the answers, you actually knew the answers. Oh, there's the answer. And you gave them the answer and they never listened to you and did whatever else. And then shit went sideways and they complained about it. Would that feel like a relationship that you really loved and respected? And would you feel loved and respected in that relationship? Well, that's what happens with our body. That's what happens with our nervous system. And so all of a sudden it can get really hyper vigilant or really dissociated because we haven't been listening. And the cool part about this that I found over the years is returning to it and getting it back online and talking clearly is actually really quick. So it's not like I've ignored it for 20 years, so it's going to take me 20 years or 10 years or 8 years or 10 months to get back online. No. As soon as we make it something that we choose to be aware of, it can go online so quick. It's such a powerful, powerful, powerful tool for us to have and have access to. And so how the body speaks to us, like I said, when it's a yes or something's right for us, feels good, often we'll get an expansion. So we'll get maybe a bit of a sense of lightness inside of us. Excuse me. Our chest will kind of open, our heart will open a little more. Whereas if it was a no, often we get tension in our jaw. And so all of a sudden there's this tension that holds there. And so when, say you get tension in your jaw, but you don't speak your truth or pay attention to that. So you get tension in your jaw and you say yes anyways. So then all of a sudden we're going to repeat that over and over again. There's a lot of different nuances to TMJ, but all of a sudden we're going to have jaw and teeth issues because you've been ignoring a sign that's been trying to come through. And we're not listening to what it is that tension is trying to say to us so that we can act in accordance to our higher self, to our own North Star, so to speak. Another yes would be that we can breathe deeper. So I often, when I'm coaching people, especially if we're in a high trauma situation, something that's very active and intimate right now in their life, I'll have them go into the breath and tell me where their breath lands. And so as we're talking, and then I ask, where's your breath right now? And they check in, they're like, oh, it's really short. Like it's up here in my shoulders. I'm like, okay, well, we're in tertiary breathing, which means we're in fight and flight. So now I'd like you to just take that breath and come into it a little deeper. And so even taking that practice right now. So as you're listening to this, where is your breath landing in your body? So often when I'm doing these, my breath isn't usually high. Yes. Okay, perfect. Now you know why. I love it. I love it. Ha! Gotta love when these things just come out to play and you start to see these things in action. Yes, Bobby. Perfect. Okay, so now follow that breath. When I'm teaching or like guiding or doing something like this, I'm active. My brain's active. I'm firing. I am in sympathetic. Now that does not mean I'm like in fight and flight, but it means I'm active and I'm super aware, which I want to be. So it's not always a bad system. It's our doing system. But I want to make sure that my breath doesn't come all the way up here where all of a sudden my shoulders and neck are getting tight, and you start getting headaches, tension headaches, because it's holding the whole scalp is holding up your whole scapula, so we've got all this work that's happening. We want to make sure that the breath is at most in our rib cage. And so we're breathing with our ribs. And so we get this expanding and contracting with those intercostal muscles. When we want to deepen and calm and settle or ground ourselves down, we want to drop that breath all the way down into our belly. So when I start feeling the tension come in into my chest and my breathing gets shallower, then I note it. Okay, this is a problem. What about this doesn't feel safe or is my no? I hold my breath often. Yes, because it doesn't feel safe to breathe. Yes. Okay. So yes, breathing. So when we do that, go, okay, that's even more than the tightness. We don't feel safe to get a breath in. And so that we won't have another breath. So that's, again, subconscious oracle of the body. Breath is a beautiful, beautiful tool. I use breath more than any other way to know what my body's trying to say to me. Because the breath becomes like that intermediary between us. So the big thing is, for a lot of people, if you have a struggle with breathing down into your belly, and a lot of people do, they find taking that breath and getting it into your belly, letting your belly expand. For one, we can take our hands and place them on our belly. That gives us immediate feedback. For two, I want you to notice if you're holding tension in your thighs, in your hips, and your buttocks, because that's safety and survival. And if those are tense, then I want you to just right now go ahead and soften your buttocks, soften your thighs, soften your hips. Yes. Yeah, well, and you've done a lot of breath work. And so we want to drop that down. Now I want you to notice your pelvic floor. So we talk about this in pelvic health, even, when you talk to pelvic floor physios. A lot of people think, oh, I just need to do more Kegels. But they don't realize their pelvic floor is actually being active in a state of contraction because it hasn't felt safe. And so it's actually exhausted. So Kegels is not what you need. We actually need the opposite. We need to learn how to soften. And so when we breathe in, naturally what we should be doing is the pelvic floor should soften. So you have 3 diaphragms of your body. You have the breathing diaphragm at your throat, your glottis. Then you have another breathing diaphragm at the top of your stomach, at the bottom of your rib cage, so between your stomach and your lungs, that big, huge balloon. And then we have a third diaphragm, which is our pelvic floor. And our pelvic floor is attached or connected to our breathing diaphragm at our stomach by 2 muscles that run on the inside of the spine. And they move in tandem together. And so when we're trying to breathe in, if we don't drop the pelvic floor, we get compression on the organs, so we can't get a good deep breath in. So we want to soften the pelvic floor, soften the thighs, soften the buttocks, soften the genitalia. And as it all softens, now breathe in and try and drop your pelvic floor into the chair. And then as you exhale, let it gently lift back up so that they move in tandem. So we're getting this tandem movement. Inhale, they both drop down. And as you exhale, they come back up. And for those of us that grew up back when you were supposed to suck your gut in, you can see how this totally reversed our breath process. We'd all of a sudden lift our pelvic floor, suck our stomach in, and then try to take a breath, and everything would come up to the top. And so now we have to relearn how to breathe. And so we drop that all the way deep, 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 deep into our bodies, deep into the pelvic bowl. And just doing a few cycles of this breath will help reset us. And all of a sudden, the answer will be there. What is my yes? What is my no? You'll know why it is a no. You'll not know if it needs to be a hard no or if it's a no that could turn to a yes if something changed. So our body's trying to give us those answers, those feedback, and the breath is part of our physical body. It links all the layers of consciousness, but it's part of physical consciousness. So when we look at the layers of consciousness, physical consciousness is our body, our environment, and our breath. Subtle consciousness, emotions, mind, intellect, ego, as well as the chakras and the meridians. And then pure consciousness, bliss consciousness is our soul or our spirit. Babies are excellent sources of how to breathe. Yes. Watch those little babies' bellies just blow right up like balloons. And it's so beautiful. They totally remind us how life is supposed to be. Yes. And often we can look at those sources to help us get back there. So the other piece that will happen, so when it's a yes, we get that deeper breathing. When it's a no, we'll get the shallower breathing, either up into our chest or all the way up into our neck. When we've got the yes, we've got the chest opening and expanding. And when we've got the no, we've got the jaw tightening. Now, I love explaining to you guys why certain things happen. So the tongue is my second place I bring everybody to. The tongue gives us so much information. If you're in a situation and your jaw's clenched, your tongue's pushed to the roof of your mouth, your heart's closed. In Chinese medicine, they acknowledge that the heart is the first thing that comes into manifestation, heart and pericardium, and then the tongue. And your tongue is connected to your heart. And so when our tongue is tight, our throat is closed, and our heart is closed or has tension. We get this huge block in the flow of energy of our bodies. So when I'm guiding meditation or yoga and we're sitting, and I'll say, okay, I want you to notice where your tongue is and peel it away from the roof of the mouth. Go ahead and do it now so everybody can play together. So take a moment, close your eyes, push the tongue to the roof of your mouth and towards the back of your throat. Made myself cough. And now, excuse me, I want you to notice what that tension feels like in your ears. Oh my goodness. My body does not like that. So push the tension in. Notice how it closes your ears so you can't hear properly. Now notice, push it up there again. Tension's in the inside of your ears. Notice how it feels on the side of your neck and in your chest. Even notice how it shuts all of your senses down. And now I want you to peel the tongue away from the roof of the mouth and notice how your eardrums sink. Notice how the sides of your neck starts to soften. Yes. Yes. It's a huge one. I did this with a group of teenagers, Denise, and it was massive. They were like, oh my gosh, doing a talk for the schools. And the girls were just dumbfounded at what happened all of a sudden just by understanding their tongue and what the tongue was trying to tell them. So now I want you to keep going. See if you can soften it all the way down past the center of the throat. See if you can keep softening until you get a softness in the center of your chest and behind your shoulder blades in the back of your heart. And this is because your tongue is connected also to muscles that end up attaching into your just totally blanked out on words for our traps. There we go. Our traps, which are big diamond muscles actually. And so it all interattaches. And so when we have tightness in our tongue and our tongue's pushed up, our heart's closed. Our heart's closed often because we feel like we're prey and it's not safe. So as we teach our body, we're safe because I'm present in you, and that is the only thing that you need to be safe, is we start being present with ourselves and we come back into our instincts. And I mean like our intuitive instincts. So we start coming back in, then the body's like, oh, nervous system can settle back down. So our tongue and our breath are two phenomenal communicators telling us what's going on with our bodies. Yeah, it's remind each other to be. I love when people have buddy systems for this because it's so cool. It's so freaking cool. The day that I learned this, it was from a Chinese doctor getting acupuncture. And he was doing a whole bunch of stuff and he's like, relax your tongue. And I was like, ugh, okay. And he's like, your heart is closed. And I was like, what? And he's like, your tongue is closed, or your heart is closed. Relax your tongue. And so he was working on my heart, and it was my tongue that I needed to soften so that he could get the energy flowing in my heart again. One of the reasons I went to him is because I'd had the brain injury and I was having panic attacks. And all of a sudden I was having all this tension coming into my heart. And so there you go. And it was a pretty phenomenal little trick. So when our body's a yes, another thing that happens is it feels exciting, scary. So anxious also feels like excitement. We can have like scary excitement. Whereas a no feels like draining and dreadful. So we get that tension, and it often turns to resentment, you guys. So if you check in with yourself and say, is this a situation I'm going to resent these people for after? Stop. That is not fair to them. They have no idea. You can even say, I would love to do this for you, but the total truth is, if I say yes to you, I'm going to resent you in 15 minutes. Most people, if they're smart, will be like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want that. Like, nobody wants people to resent them. That doesn't feel good. It's not loving. So once you understand that, then it gives a totally different context to our relationships and our communication. Another one is there's a quiet knowing. And we often ignore the shit out of this. And there's a quiet knowing. If you go into the stillness in your breath and you come into your heart, there is a stillness, a quietness that is always around it and within it. And this stillness is like a calm strength. And it is like a silence. And it is the under support of everything. And once you bring your awareness to it, it automatically it seems to expand. It's already through everything, but really what happens is you become more and more aware of its expansiveness. And in that silence and that stillness is every answer to every question you have ever asked and will ever ask. And it's always within you, not outside of you. You are so freaking powerful. You are one little cell that duplicated until you split into a placenta and a fetus. You duplicated until you became an infant. You continued to duplicate after birth in a toxic environment and continued to grow for up to 28 years, because most prefrontal cortexes now don't finish full development until between 24 and 28. So think about that. You are freaking brilliant. Nobody ever had to think. Your mom didn't think, oh, today I'm growing an arm. It wasn't like something that had to be concentrated on. You have that inside of you. And it's in the stillness, in the quietness that we access it. Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, there's days when I get to experience it when I'm guiding meditation or just in my own practice, and I cry quite often when I guide yin meditation or do my own practice, because that's where I want to tap back into, is that wisdom. We are freaking powerful people. We are so beautiful and so brilliant. And the thing that we forget or we don't understand is that that light inside of us, our divinity, our essence, even though it lives and exists in the world of Prakriti, in the world of shadows, it is never marred. Its light is never anything but pure. So all we need to do is burn and disintegrate this away from us so that we can see our light again. The light is still pure. It never, ever, 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 ever changes. We are never broken. We can never be fully lost. We can be really covered up, but we can never truly be lost because we always exist within there. So keep that in mind. Okay. So even when we're scared, the body, a body-based yes feels different than a fear-based no. So really it's like that expansion, the softening, or the contracting and the tightening that the body, as the oracle, is trying to tell us. I always give you my stories all the way through. I always like put a thing in here, like explain it in your own body, but then I like pepper all of my little stories in between them, so we're all good. What we want to know is, or ask ourselves, what do I already know? So I use the sacred pause a lot. If I'm in a tense situation, and tense could be anything. So it could be a tense situation with family, it could be work, it could be something going on in my own personal life, like say like your health, something like that. And if I need to make a choice, I will not make the choice fast. That means, even if intuitively I feel like it's a yes, often what I'll do, if you watch me, I'll go, yes. And I take the breath, and the reason why I look up is, for me as a claircognizant person, that's kind of where I download through, like that kind of tends to be where my information comes. So I always tend to look slightly up and to the left, and I let the information come. And really what I'm doing is I'm giving myself a whole bunch of space for the information to just, not only be like yes, but like to really enter into every cell of my body. I'm letting it become a full body yes. And it could be that I finish and I'm like, no. And that no might be just a hard pass, or it might be like there's negotiation. So, but by taking the sacred pause, and the sacred pause being a full, deep belly breath, I'm looking so people are aware. I'm paying attention. I'm like, oh. And I always do a lip thing because then they really know I'm thinking. and then I come through and I'm like, yes or no. That helps me be present and be anchored. It also helps the other person understand that I've anchored into my answer. I'm not just reacting from a trauma or drama. I'm anchored in and I'm responding to the question or to the request. And that can go for anything in my life when I'm looking for clarity. Taking some deep breaths and coming into my body lets me know exactly what I need to do next. A lot of my stuff, like I make notes for myself, but I channel or just openly free flow all the time when I'm doing podcasts, when I'm doing meditations, when I'm teaching yin, when I'm teaching courses. I tend to free flow it and just let the information come. As long as I'm fully anchored into myself, all the information's there. And we have all got access into that. I'm not special. Like I'm special, but we're all special. So like keep that in mind. This is not something that we don't have access to. We all have access to it. And there's a long time I had no idea it was available to me. And so that is something that brings me great excitement, is once we start becoming aware of it and seeing people get that awareness that like, oh my gosh, that's in me. It's freaking beautiful. You are a divine creature. It's freaking amazing. So please just allow yourself to keep coming back to that. So what does this mean for you? So if your nervous system is whispering, not this, and your body is saying, I don't want to keep betraying myself, you're tired of pretending you don't know what to do, this is the moment. This is the moment that we want to start practicing a different way of being. Even on the phone, it says your clarity lives in your body. Your sovereignty starts there. Even when we are in this place, if we're on the phone, even like for many of us, we work, we're on the phone, people can't see our face. They can ask a question, be like, oh, let me think about that for a moment, or let me absorb that. And it would just be rude and disrespectful to not give somebody a moment to absorb it, to think on it. And so we can use a word that goes, oh, I hear you. Let me just think on that for a minute, or let me check this. And so we're saying something that gives us the space to take the breath. And so there's ways that we can do this, and you can try different little ones until you find the one that really resonates, that feels most authentic for you. So I want you to practice this and then come back to this. Tell me what happens. Tell me what your body is telling you. One of the books that I use a lot when it comes to the Oracle and learning about a lot of the work is this book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. I use it every single day in my own personal life and in clients' lives. So, and the body's never lying. It's never wrong. What's interesting, that book the original was written like back in the 80s, and she updated it a couple of times, and there was no need to update again. Everything that's going on with our body, every imbalance and obstacle is either coming from an emotion that is based in fear or based in anger. And anger is the defense to fear. So still, fear is somewhere in there. And it's never wrong. In all of my work of going through psychosomatics and what's happening in people's lives, sore backs, sore SI joints, piriformis issues, sciatica pain, almost always I'll ask the question, do you not feel like it's safe to create money, or that you're not supported financially? If they say yes, then if it's in the right leg, then I'll say, is this something that's come up in your adulthood? And when did the sciatica pain start? And what happened 6 months prior to the sciatica pain beginning? If it's in your left leg, I'll start looking at what the family traits are, because it'll be something from childhood, or it'll be something that's epigenetic, ancestral. It'll be an old family wound. And so we'll look at that on the left. You need that book, Bobby. It's freaking amazing. And her story that she tells in it on how she came here is next level. This is the very first beginning of this book is actually what started my healing with my relationship with my mother. And it begins with, you picked your parents. And all of a sudden, you got nobody to blame. And it was a fascinating journey from that point on. But I got that book in my late 30s, and it changed my whole life. So I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And if you haven't already, we have the Unlearning. So this is a new boot camp that I created based on both my practical and my spiritual work. And it's all about unlearning the ways that we were taught to be in this world, and so that we can uncover this light, this beauty that's within us. It starts on June 9th, so next Monday. It is going to run in the mornings. I'm always like, how are you ever going to figure out what everybody's schedule is going to like? So this one runs, I think, 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. And it is going to be so for 5 days, but it's recorded. So if you can't make 9 a.m. or you've kind of got it one ear, don't worry, it's going to be recorded, and the recordings will go out that evening. And that's going to be 5 days of, and it's free, absolutely free, and you'll get all the recordings. If you can't make it in there, I am going to, for our group here, I will be also downloading the videos of that into here for us. So then, and it'll just be access here. So you'll have 2 access points through your email or through our Facebook group. But yeah, and the nice thing is go ahead and sign up for it, even if you're going to watch it through here, because then you'll get the reminders and the homework and the workbook and everything else. So you'll get all those pieces that go with it. And that is absolutely free. And I'm really excited because this is kind of part of the Unlearning came after the Contrarian Soul Guide, after I finally kind of heard the message and really stepped into my own power, my own light, as a Contrarian Soul Guide, as a spiritual coach, which I pulled back from for many, many, many years. I've been a certified spiritual director for 5 years, a certified coach for over 7, and it was terrifying because it left me completely unguarded. And so when I really had to sit with that and accept who and what I really am in February, March, it was like, okay, we're ready. And that was what catapulted the podcast Sovereignty Rising. It's I'm away coming up soon from June 14th to the 24th. I will be messaging you guys from away this time. I'm going to be in Greece at a mastermind with my coach, 13 of us, and I'm going to be doing finishing writing my book. So that's a big part of me going, is to finish writing Sovereignty Rising. And I'll be doing work there with my own coach and recording some podcasts and doing that as well. So I'm excited to go. But that's coming up for me. So right after we finish the Unlearning. But yeah, so that is all coming up for us. I'm trying to remember why I was just telling you about Greece. But yeah, so just keep that in mind, that as you're coming into this, like having that connection with each other, coming into our light. Oh, I was talking about coming into this. So, the Unlearning grew from this awakening, this acceptance really of my light, the acceptance of this is who you are, and it's not just your intrinsic purpose to find yourself and to help others, but it's also your extrinsic purpose out in this world. And yeah, so I'm excited. So this will be our first time doing the Unlearning, and it'll be a program that I probably do quarterly as we continue to move on and the information grows. It'll always change a bit, but the base of it will stay the same. All right, I better run for now. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. I would really love for you guys to message in here your experiences, playing with your breath, playing with your tongue, and what messages do you notice from your body? And if there's something you're not sure of, so I just had somebody come in and we were talking about some stuff going on with colons, and we were talking about what the colon means, and we were discussing what that looks like in work and coaching. So working through fear of an old hurt, familial hurt especially, and our inability to process and let go. So think of what the organ does, and it'll often tell you emotionally what you need to do. So if there's something that does come up, you can private message me. If you're feeling like you're not wanting to share that publicly, then you can always private message me if you've got a question about something that your oracle is trying to communicate that you're not quite understanding. Have a fabulous day, you guys. See you soon.